Hi guys, good afternoon. It's always awesome catching up with fellow comic creators. Some of you
Absolutely.
I have known for a long time. Some of you I am meeting here virtually for the first time. So a big hello to everyone here, and I hope this is going to be like a fun session for those who are joining us as audiences. Um, so how are we all doing?
All good.
All
Very
good.
good.
All good.
Awesome. All right. So I think before we get started with the questions, the first question that any artist or creator, content creator, let me use the word content creator before everything else, is asked is what made you go into this domain? What made you create the stuff you are creating? I'm sure you have inspirations. I'm sure there has been a time that you decided, you know what? This is what I have to target. This is what I have to work on. So I want to have a quick round of comments from each one of you. I think we'll start with Srishti.
Okay.
What got you inspired? What's your inspiration behind the work you're doing?
Okay. If we talk about the inspiration why I make web comics, so this is one Indian thing, I guess, that what we are told not to do, we do it even more. So my parents never wanted me to draw stuff, and yeah, that's what I always wanted to do. Apart from that, children illustrations. So once I was volunteering as an intern in a children library, and it was run by Safdar Hashmi Trust. And that is the place where I learned that this is so important for children to get good books. They don't have enough resources. And that is when I started searching for books, children books, and I started drawing children illustrations as well.
Fabulous. How about you, Cyrus? I mean, we all know Zal. We are very happy and proud that we have a local cartoon strip running in a newspaper, legit, the way it's the classic way of going about things. And of course, you have a presence online as well. Talk to us about how that came about or what inspires you.
So, as my inspiration is pretty much also on my T-shirt that I'm wearing. Comic strips like Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes. Growing up with reading those amazing comic strips, and I always wanted to I always felt that that gap is obviously missing in Indian comics. There is no Indian comic strip. As I mean, it's not like there aren't any, but there are very few and far between comic strips. I
Right.
mean, so I remember one was there in midday, like about a decade ago. But apart from that, maybe a few regional comics, but there was a huge gap. So my advent into the world of comics was stage by stage. But Zal came about, it was a long gestation period of coming up with the whole idea of Zal, fleshing out the characters, sitting on it for a few years also after I have finished everything, and then finally applying to newspapers, after which, Midday was the first paper to pick it up, which was just amazing.
Great. How about you, Jazyl?
So,
I mean, Jazyl,
yeah, absolutely.
it's more like to tell the others. I mean, we
Totally.
we know each other since the last decade and a half, I
It's
guess.
funny that people only relate me to Beast Legion, but actually animation is my main profession. So I work as an animator full time, but Beast Legion is a concept that I just wanted to get out, and I wanted as many people to read it as possible. I'm a fan of fantasy, 80s adventures, 80s cartoons. So I kind of wanted to mix all that experience and make one story that was legit. As you know, I have like 59 chapters planned for it at some point. Whether I'll reach them, God knows. But I'm trying my best just to get my story out there. And it's working. I mean, right now I've kind of taken a little backseat from the webcomic part and moving more into animation and works. But yeah, it's always going to be a project that's close to my heart, and I always love to see take it forward. So Beast Legion is something that's like, I think now 13 years in the making, and
Yep.
started in 2010, still going on with 15 chapters. So it's going on. I can't say it's a very profitable venture, but then I have other avenues at the side that I get my enough funds from. So
Sure.
that's about it for Beast Legion.
Awesome. And now we come to Bob and Bobby, aka Saswata and Susruta as well. But I think we'll stick to Bob and Bobby because that's who you are very popular as. So let's hear it from y'all.
Uh, Yeah, so it's kind of similar with us. I mean, we grew up reading comics, Bengali comics, mostly, Asterix and Tintin translated in Bengali, and Narayan Devnath, and there are other cartoonists and comic artists from Bengal as well that we have grown up reading. So we developed that, interest in, and we were also, if you can say it, we were addicted to sketching. We were sketching everywhere, like from electricity bills to, bathroom walls to everywhere, behind textbooks, and we were getting scolded for that on a regular basis. So we were kind of, into art, into creating since an early age. So yeah, and we another thing that we also used to do is that we used to create fan fiction. I mean, we used to read Tintin, and then we used to make comics of Tintin, like, I mean, very rough scribbles, and like Tintin in Kolkata, and Asterix, and a spin-off where, Asterix and Tintin are meeting together and playing football.
Nice.
Yeah. So we were into it for since an early age, but we took it as a, a study subject after our 12th, because we performed, poorly in our joint entrance examinations, and we, unfortunately, there was only one entrance test that we cracked, which was on the subject that we like.
Yeah.
And that's why
that worked for us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. No, this is great. In fact, I kind of prepped myself into, and I'm sure the audience as well knows that the kind of influences, the kind of backstories. Let me use the word backstory since we're talking comics here. So, it's varied, and the content each one of you makes is also very, very specific. And we are talking about independent voices here. So this brings me to the first main question per se. When we look around, when we talk about independent voices, how much of that independent voice, what does it mean to you? And do you follow any particular trend when you have to latch on to some particular topic when it comes to your independent opinion? Is there a trend you follow when you're creating your content? You can volunteer to go first, or else I can just, pick any one of you to start off with, whichever works for you. How about you, Cyrus? Let's start with you, since, I see a lot of it in Jazyl, wherein if something has happened now, I see it in midday, I see it in the comic, and I connect it immediately. So that is the quick recall that I get there. How do you go about it?
So actually, it's a tricky situation with Jazyl because I have to submit the comics well in advance. So very often I have to anticipate certain events, anticipate certain days. So it's not necessarily that I send the comics every single week. I usually work at least a month or two ahead of time. So just to keep a pace. So for example, there's going to be a Jazyl comic coming out tomorrow, which will be about the rising fuel prices. I mean, that will be more or less the theme. But I just bet on the fact that, those fuel prices wouldn't really come down by Sunday.
So along with being a comics creator, you're also a fortune teller in a way that you kind of foresee.
Yeah. I even have a fortune teller as one of my sub characters now.
Amazing.
So trying to expand that universe. So yeah, some of it is anticipation, some of it is just luck. Like with the whole COVID situation in the past year, I was actually in a dilemma what to really do. Should I really bring the whole situation into my comic strip, or should it be divorced from the entire reality? So what I've done is I took the first option. I thought of bringing the whole COVID situation occasionally into the comic strip, but without, of course, keeping it within the whole universe of Jazyl and his entire characters.
Correct.
But more or less, the strip is supposed to be based in Mumbai city. So that's the reason also that Midday sort of wanted to take it on, because it was based in Mumbai.
Correct.
So a lot of the themes also revolve occasionally around life in the city. So that's more or less the universe and the context within which, in terms of independent voice, in terms of context, that's where I work. I can't really take too much of a political situation in my comic strip, because you have to balance that out. It's not a political strip. So I've been very clear about that. I don't want to do political comics because people associate newspaper comics with only political comics. And I really wanted to change that. And I hope more people take up that cause.
Yeah, which is why I'm going to segue right to Bob and Bobby right now. I'm just going to directly segue there because though we had a few chats on our group before the session started, I really want to hear a quick, quick thought on this aspect of it, the independent voice and what it means to you.
By independent voice, what it means to us is like, when we are creating, it would be like, the primary reason would be, because we genuinely feel about whatever we are creating. And even if it's something we know that is not going to attract praises and everything, maybe even trolling, so we would still create it anyway. So that's independent voice. Also, we know if it's not falls under the, if it doesn't fall under the category of a trending topic, we would still create it. So that's what independent voice would mean to us. Like we have often created comics on things that we have felt is not being talked about enough, but needs to be. And so we created something on that, so that it would at least direct people to maybe news articles, so that you can find out what's happening, which we think are important to be found out by citizens.
Sure. Which means creating awareness becomes one of the motives why you would use this platform. And I think, Srishti, would you agree with that? Because seeing the kind of content even you've created, there's a lot of social commentary there, especially the one you have tied up with the Webcomics. There was one, I think, which ran on Webcomics, or was it? I'm not sure how you went about it, but I really liked that. And I feel a lot of it comes from social notions or preset notions, or however that is. So what's your take on this? How do you see the independent voice concept here?
For me, the independence voice is somehow related to expression of whatever you feel like, whatever you see around yourself. And when I connect this to children illustrations, children books, the trend has been to teach children all the good things they can from those illustrations or those books that have been given to them.
Right.
All the good habits, or just the way you spell things, or just vocabularies. These are the only things that you teach.
Fennel, can you just mute yourself, please? Fennel?
Sure.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Srishti, go on.
Yeah. So my artwork is totally opposite from that, because that's the trend. I did not want to follow that sort of a trend, because all the things that happen around children, around us as an adult, they are not the good things. Not all the things are good things. You just have to look for it. You will never find it just the right way. So for me, the independent voice is the freedom of expression of the things just the way they are. And that is for everyone, not just for adults, for children as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I think that's where it has to start from. And that's a very important audience in the first place. Which brings me to Jazyl, because in this, I wanted to keep this as the last opinion on this round of answers, because with you, I see the independent voice kind of applies itself to the independent IP creations that you're also doing, apart from the fact that social, political apart. Yours is another independent voice of a little different variety, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm...
No, you are absolutely right. See, the thing is, I don't mix politics and, stuff with my artwork. I keep that for a separate, complete occasion. I'm very vocal on social media on various topics, but I don't mix them with my artwork, purely because I want people to enjoy it, people of all genres to enjoy it. And if I start mixing up, I do like mythological and anime illustrations lately, which have been gaining a lot of momentum. Yep. But I would still like to keep my topics, on point, because as you know, animation is my mainstream. I generally take up work from various studios, from various indie publishers. But Beast Legion is something that I have set from the very first time. And even Beast Legion has a lot of kind of moral values if you go throughout the chapters.
Yes.
Every chapter actually focuses on a certain kind of element of moral value. But that's about it. I try to keep politics and stuff away. Environment, after all, basically Zeus is going against an evil fascist tyrant. So that, if you call that politics, that's cool. But yeah, I mean,
I see what you did there.
So yeah, I mean, that's how it is.
Perfect. Now, while we were chatting up, I remember Cyrus and I, we agreed on one point there. Jazyl, go on.
See, if you call me as a my independent voice, it will be more towards kind of promoting anime manga culture in India, which I did from the very start. You've been following me from 2010, and it's definitely grown a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I personally think I want to give it just a little bit.
We have Mr. EP Unni with us. Unni sir, good afternoon. So glad you could join us.
I'm looking forward to this session after this.
Yeah. So, hold on 1 second.
Hello, Amol, can you mute Mr. Unni? Can you mute Unni, please? Amol, whoever's the admin, can you mute Unni?
Nice, actually. Nice background.
It adds to a session very, very on a high level. It's not every day you get Mr. Unni joining us. You're going to enjoy this.
Cutting this.
Yeah, so
it's still on unmute. Whoever's the admin.
Admin, can you mute Amol? Neha, can you tell Amol to mute Mr. Unni, please?
Amol's having a late lunch.
Normally, I'm the admin and I can mute people. This time, they've not made me the admin.
Conspiracies.
Just give me a second.
This is epic. One of my favorite cartoonists. It's not every day this happens. I'm enjoying this.
Maybe he's teaching us a lesson in trolling and whatnot.
I know. We're talking about independent voices and there's one. Bam. All right. So, I mean, we were discussing before the session started among ourselves, and Cyrus and I actually agreed on a part that probably he and I, are not as active on social media, where, I mean, Cyrus, do you stand by that? I mean, I am not.
I would say that I am active. I'm just, in fact, I'm not a big voice on social media.
I mean, yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right? I don't know. The entire difference here comes in the fact that using social media has become, how do you go about it? Content creators, do you post something every day? Do you create an ongoing strip? How has internet usage, using the internet platform, benefited, independent creators and cartoonists like you all? I mean, maybe we start with Bob and Bobby. I mean, let's just go.
Yeah.
In order of followers.
Yes. So we feel that the first thing that it has done is it has given us a platform to reach a wider audience. That's that, and it's free for now. So that way,
it doesn't cost us money.
Doesn't cost us money, but often our sanity at times. So that way, I mean, if we can go back like 15 years back, there was no existence of this trend, like putting your art out there, and and people from anywhere in the world can see it, react to it, engage with it.
Absolutely.
So since we have been reading a lot of comics and cartoons, there are a lot of gems that does not reach a wider audience at times, we see, and that has changed completely after the advent of social media. So yeah, that's one way it has helped us a lot.
Because this is quite unlike the case what it was earlier when we used to say how much of internet penetration is there in India. There was a time when we used to say that. Now, who consumes content like that? But now things are so different.
Yeah.
We have probably seen that generation of the modems, so kurr karke, then we used to log in, and now it's just like at a tip of your finger that the content is there. There's so much to consume. Are you in agreement, Srishti, as well, that the times we live in, it's a medium that is being used very effectively?
Yes, I totally agree with that. Because the scene of children illustrations in India, it's totally different from what it is globally out there. People are very much aware of what sort of content they need to feed children, and that and young adults, they have differentiated children in different ages, and it's so good. So internet and social media has helped me a lot to see the trends that go globally and that are working, the things that work for children. So yeah, that has helped me a lot, and a lot of innovations that happen in illustrations or webcomics or anything like that, you can just see it just when they happen. The trends, the good things that happen, you can just see them right there and right there. You can follow them, and yeah, things like that. So that is very, very helpful, I believe.
It is. Would you agree with this, Cyrus? I mean, I do know that you have a much more vocal Twitter handle. I do follow you on Twitter as well.
Yeah, I'm a totally different person on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram.
I love your handle name as well.
So yeah, I keep changing my handle name on Twitter. So I'm really savage based on Twitter because I just rant endlessly. But on Instagram, I try to keep a little more true to comics and whatnot. It's not like I don't have a voice, a social or political voice on Instagram, but I just get nauseated with myself fully when it comes to posting constant comments on the political situation. So I try to segregate my work from my personal opinion.
Sure.
So to your question in terms of exposure, yes, it's amazing in that sense. There are artists that we have seen and who are growing who we would have never known or met necessarily. Like honestly, I mean, I'm familiar with Bobby's work, and I myself have shared work of people on this panel and whatnot and beyond on my own handle when I see their work. So that's amazing. So, but for me personally, I find it sometimes a bit burdensome in terms of trying to catch up with the whole algorithm game of followers and whatnot.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Post. It's great actually. Depending on what your focus is.
Yep.
If your focus is also in terms of getting exposure and getting your message out, then absolutely great. Monetizing is always going to be an issue. That's the problem I also had with webcomics. It was my training ground too, to be honest. Honestly, the first comic I created was a webcomic, and it wasn't on social media. It was before even Instagram existed in India. It was on a blog spot. So, but just the whole experience of creating a comic online was a great training ground for myself. Because I mean, there aren't so many media opportunities and spaces for you to really put up your comics.
Correct.
But Instagram has changed the game for comic creators, and I think it's going to improve as it goes ahead.
That's right. In fact, Jazyl, what are your...
I'll actually go the other way around. Because actually, when Facebook and Instagram started, there was the whole chronology feed, which kind of put new works out there. Now it's all about cloud, who has the largest cloud gets the most seen. Or if it's like topics that are really trending on politics, or maybe let's just say environmental issues, politics, or just fashion, fitness, because Instagram is mainly about fashion and fitness. If you look at the broad point, the algorithm favors that. I've been doing a lot of study on all social media platforms. I go live, I connect with people. So that's great. That's great about the new Instagram live sessions and stuff like that. But primarily when I started webcomics, I wasn't really, using social media as much. I was using platforms like Project Wonderful to promote my work. And that was actually getting in more fans and bringing in more return on investment in my comics through ads and stuff. After Project Wonderful was this small thing which supported webcomic creators. It was like webcomic creators could advertise on other webcomics and thereby gain more. So all that changed later on with social media coming in, and definitely more exposure to social media. But lately the algorithm's been all over the place. I mean,
right.
So it's always a catching up game, like how you kind of, what content you bring out, Now, if I bring out my original work, it's definitely not going to go as much further as something like a fan art I do that I completely, if I do like a Naruto in an Indian attire, that's like crossed 2,000, 3,000 likes, which has never happened before.
Right.
So you have to kind of have a mix of content. It's not just your webcomic you keep promoting. You have to stay up with the latest anime, manga. I'm talking about my field. It all depends differently. Like what Bob and Bobby are doing are amazing stuff. I've been following. I've been sharing their work, in fact, for quite some time. But yeah, that's politics. So it's going to gain a lot of traction. But when it comes to anime, manga, and stuff like that, you have to kind of, experiment constantly. So I mix anime with mythology. I mix anime with Indian culture. Just a way to get things out there. So yeah, that's how it is.
Awesome. In fact, I get asked very often, at various events or workshops, and as a reader, as a consumer of content, am I and this is literally the word they use, am I the old school hard copy fan, or am I the new age digital comics fan? For various obvious logistic reasons, they ask me that, and my answer is I'm always confused what to say, because I am a comics collector. I love the way it is when a physical book in hand, but the opportunities that digital comics and the web domain has given consumption, it's vast. It's a time of Kindles, right, where you can have the entire library in a small little gadget in your hand. I want to hear from you all individually. What do you prefer as a consumer? Is it the classic hard copy, or web is the way? This is a very, very simple question. I just wanted to put it in there. Whoever wants to volunteer first.
I can go first if you want.
Sure, Jazyl, go for it.
I was just saying, I'm a fan of both. Like, see, if I follow something like Naruto or Full Metal Alchemist, I make sure I have the manga in hand as well. But most of my content I consume digitally. And with webtoons coming in, there are so many Indian creators coming up on webtoons. I've been literally people have got inspired by me to take up webtoons, and they are doing really well. I'm not
awesome.
bragging, but I've literally guided them step by step. So webtoons has become a great platform. Unfortunately, I can't convert Beast Legion to a webtoon format, but definitely in the future, that's the future basically. Webtoons has given an opportunity to so many young artists to come up, and they're doing some really, really good work. I've got to know at least 10 or 15 of them through Instagram.
Wow.
And it's growing. So now people are slowly getting used to it. There's still that infatuation for hard copy books, which is fine, because it has collector value. Webcomics don't have collector value. So yeah, it's a mixed question, but I consume a little bit of both. So that's how it should be, I guess.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Just as an opinion.
Yeah. So as a school librarian, people ask me also a lot that, would you prefer ebooks or the, the binded hard copies and something like that. So I usually tell them it does not depend upon the book. Actually, it's the content that matters.
Yeah.
If it's good enough, if it's good, and it's good digitally, and it's good in a hard copy. Doesn't matter. Although what I face when I read comics or books online is that a lot of distractions I face, with calls, messages, and all this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do prefer the old school way.
Right.
So that I can read in silence for a while.
Awesome. Cyrus?
Yeah. So I think they feed into each other. I don't see them as exclusive, honestly. I'm definitely a fan of hard copy because I guess I'm a little more old school in calling that.
That's the word, exactly.
Yeah. But, I honestly don't think it's really necessarily old school. I don't agree with people, because people keep saying print is dead and whatnot, but it's just not true.
Exactly.
Because, books continue to sell, and they will continue to sell. And frankly, you can't replace a hard copy with anything else. Webtoons and whatnot are their own existence, and they're amazing in themselves. But it doesn't mean that they're replacing the whole advent of holding an actual physical copy in your hand.
Right.
So everyone needs to move with the times. So I also had to move on to Instagram eventually and put up my comics and learn how to play with the algorithms and whatnot, I guess, eventually. But doesn't mean you need to abandon your roots either. There's nothing like holding a hard copy of a comic in your hand. And more than anything, I still feel that the whole revenue model, which has been spoken about in the last couple of days in various sessions,
Yeah.
for comics, it's how you have to figure out the revenue model that you really want to earn from, for example, webtoons also. Uh, I would find it a struggle, to be honest, if I was only staying within that space of, only in webtoons. So maybe some people figure it out through various commissions and whatnot, and some people figure it out with, with Patreon and whatnot. So there are different ways to tackle it. But I am definitely a fan of not keeping them exclusive. I think they mix into each other.
Sure. And Bob and Bobby?
Yeah, I would, go with what Cyrus said. But since, when we were kids, we would get comic books as gifts, right? And the first 2-3 days were spent not by reading it, not by flipping through the pages, but just by smelling it, right? So, I mean, even now...
You got it, man. This is nostalgia.
Yeah, even now we go to a bookstore, and if anybody sees us, I don't know what they feel. We are first sniffing the books, right?
So first Bobby would go for the sniff, then he would give it to me, and we do this like he would give it to me, and he would ask me that which time does this smell remind you of? Then I would say, and he would agree that
this was the Tintin comics from 1999, like that. We associate memories with particular time periods.
And that has that thing is attached to smell of pages, and you can't smell digital comics. They are easily accessible, like you can read it on a go.
And another thing about, I think they are coexisting pretty great. And I can see the little details which I often tend to miss when I'm looking at a hard copy. I'm zooming in, and it also helps us to study in that sense, like the composition, the narratives, and stuff like that, which helps us in creating our own comics. And we were actually introduced to webcomics back in probably 2011. Like my elder brother showed us the Oatmeal.
Okay. Yeah.
Is your elder brother Bob, or is it like...
No, there's a different entity. It's Bonnie.
Yeah.
So Bobby, Bonnie.
Bobby.
We are 3 brothers.
Amazing.
So yes, I think that both have their equal value, and they won't be replacing each other per se anytime soon.
Right, because out here, especially in Mumbai, that all our favorite bookshops have, unfortunately, most of them, have closed. I remember Landmark being there in Andheri. What a place that was,
I love Landmark.
A beautiful place, exactly. And the moment you enter, the smell of books used to hit you, and you could spend hours there. It's just a luxury finding a bookshop now. And I completely am with you when you said that, and we used to be gifted books, and I used to not even open the spine. I used to be like, "Arey, aaram se thoda sa," fingerprint nahi aana chahiye and all that. So that was there. And one more thing I noticed that I guess reading a hard copy scores over digital sometimes is that the fact that if there's some suspense coming up, you leave it on the last panel of the even number page. The odd number page, and then you turn to see what the reveal is. So it's literally like watching a movie where the reveal comes linear way mein. But yeah, of course, this is how you use, and that suspense aspect doesn't come in a webcomic, especially when I'm reading like a comic on the app or something. I just swipe and read. But apart from that, these are things that, of course, we use the medium to tell stories in a particular way. Let's come to the negatives of the platform, if any. Now, this negative can be technology related, or it can be public reaction related as well. And by that, I mean maybe trolling, negative comments, subscriber feedback. Maybe it is something like, I think this is not appropriate, or this is not funny. There are these comments that come in sometimes. This is not like I make my Angry Maushi series. The amount of comments I've got on it, it's not for children. It has a disclaimer, but I will still get people saying, how much of violence in one comic? Why would you have violence in comics? Say it's for adults. That's plain and simple. It can't just be. But no, people are just not happy. So what are the negatives you have come across with this platform when it comes maybe to technology or maybe to people? Again, I keep this open. Whoever wants to volunteer first can go, because I'm pretty sure each one of you has faced some or the other issue. It's a great way of doing it, but I'm sure it comes with some negatives.
Firstly, if we go by the technology, lately it has been the algorithm. It has been designed such a way that it capitalize on the artist's need to be noticed or be visible enough.
Right.
And as a result of that, we have seen a lot of artists just they are just churning out and they're just posting one after other, and at times they look forced. Right. And just for the sake it often forces us to create something just for the sake of creating it, rather than organically, or if we not feeling it.
Yeah.
So that is one aspect of it, and the other is of course trolling, and we have been at the receiving end of it pretty much every time we have posted an artwork. And
also I mean, there's this constant feeling like you're being monitored. So that's there. And every artwork we have posted, we would get comments and direct messages in the dead of the night, and they would be, they would be threatening, to say the least. But once you're into the platform and you're creating content, I think that's a conscious choice you make, and it's harder for women out there because So
reactions wise, would you say it's the same, Srishti? I mean, reactions wise, I mean, were there harsh reactions you've got, or maybe something that just didn't work out algorithm wise? What were your experiences there?
So once I worked with feminism in India, and I started making political comics. Not because I was working with feminism, but because I was constantly reading news, writing articles with them. So it came to me automatically that, okay, this idea has come and I'll make political comics and all. So yeah, I started facing hatred, which was the result. I stopped making political comics because I was not employed at that time, and I did not know that if anything happens, how would I be able to face it. So I just stopped it. Even if I wanted to make more comics, I had more ideas made with me, and I did not post them for the reason. So another thing is the algorithm. Of course, it forces you constantly to make content, and it's actually a sort of it's so much pressure on you to create content, and the number of likes you get, you don't get the comments. If you get it, if you don't get it, you just constantly keep checking on it, and it's so much pressure, I feel. So I started doing that on Instagram. I started posting things, but after a while I felt like, why do I have to post every day or every week? I want to post on my own speed. What is it?
Nice. Okay.
So
yeah, no, but I get it. I mean, there are things that you probably have to take calls on, whether should you continue doing this because of so and so reason, or does it even there are particular stages in which these thoughts do cross your mind. Even with Jazyl, I feel, Cyrus, it's a feel good vibe it has, but it has a lot of message with it. Have you come across any negatives with something as as slice of life as Jazyl? Have you found people reading between the lines and causing some sort of reactions over it? Have you come across any negatives in making these comics?
So the main delivery mechanism of Jazyl is honestly the midday newspaper where it comes.
Correct.
So I'm sure that they get a lot of letters here and there, but it doesn't come to me directly necessarily. So maybe when I post it on social media here and there, yes.
Okay.
So maybe I have that bit of a buffer. I'll speak to another aspect of social media that bothered me in terms of, I think Srishti was talking about it, that whole emotional aspect as a creator. Initially when I started posting my comics, I started there are things like polls and whatnot, and that swipe in which you can sort of
Yeah.
decide how much you like it. I can't remember what it's called right now. I sound like a dinosaur, but when I put up those comics like with those polls, I used to get annoyed if I saw somebody I knew who gave me a low rating. I'd be like, what the hell? So stuff like that. So I decided to just stop it because it was affecting me as a creator. And I'm like, this is not what I'm about. I'm not going to chase reactions. Sure, I always welcome feedback. Honestly, most of my feedback has been positive always to my work. But I welcome feedback, but not, criticizing for the sake of it. That's just not worth it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I prefer to just put up my work and let people comment. I mean, obviously, my work is not as politically sensitive as maybe Bob and Bobby's is in that sense. But what I try to do is I try to do a mix. All my work is in Jazyl. I do politically motivated comics and social comics also in my mix. And the reactions have to flow. You have to take it, I guess. That's just the nature of the beast.
Right. How about you, Jazyl?
Yeah, so mine is obviously more towards the technical side because I don't delve into politics when it comes to art. So, at times when I do mythological pieces, there are comments, but then there's the block button there, so you can block them at any time. So that's cool. But other than that, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what. So my problem is with the technical aspect of social media, the way it kind of works now, that it kind of promotes the bigger artists and the lower artists, and people. Like when I had to restart my account after the first one got hacked on Instagram, I literally had to start from scratch. But that was a good thing because I found new ways to connect with people, to better connect with my audience. So in a way, it's good. And on a side note, the algorithm is something that needs to be fixed at some point because it kind of just keeps getting the famous people up while the others stay down in the channel, unless you're doing some post that is really going to go inflammatory or, either positively or negatively. So I generally don't do on that particular line. So I don't know. I mean, it's technical more than anything.
Yeah.
And like I said, whenever there is I do get comments when I kind of mix anime with mythology. कि ये हम लोग ये क्या कर रहे हो आप और ये कैसे हो सकता है. So for them, I have the block button ready. So I don't kind of get into arguments. I hate getting arguments on Instagram at least. Facebook, I don't mind because Facebook is my kind of way to rant. But when it comes to Instagram, block is the best way.
Awesome. So anyway, I think I'm getting some super prompts to wrap this up because apparently we are almost over time or on time. I don't know what, but we would have loved to continue. This was fantastic. I think we will be connecting any which way. And for people who have watched, I hope this session was helpful.